Hello, Jacksonites! Surprise! Not the continuation of my movie collection. That's not being canceled, but I had an opportunity to do this today, so I took it. So, next month, April 5th, will be the 50th anniversary of the career of a little certain somebody. Um, in the realm of horror novels and just prolific authors in the last century or so, there's been many authors that have come and gone over the years, like Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley, Dean Koontz, Richard Matheson, R.L. Stein, Thomas Harris.
Jonathan Rand. Well, that's more of a Michigan. Well, he wrote. I don't know if you ever heard. Like he did American Chillers.
Who?
A guy named John. Well, he's big in Michigan, so like he wrote Michigan Chillers, and they wanted to write American Chillers, and basically every state he'd write a book for every single state. I don't know if he finished them yet. He had I think he was in the 40s last I checked. But basically every state it would have say the letter is the state begins with an M, it'd be like Michigan Mega Monsters, or if you're in Ohio, like Ogres of Ohio or something, and then it would whatever state it was, he'd make some sort of monster or creature base, but it would have the same name as the state.
What's this name?
Jonathan Rand.
I've never heard of that person.
Okay, he also had a pen named Christopher Knight, but like I said, a big thing in Michigan. He has this little thing up near the Upper Peninsula, I guess, or it's kind of northern Michigan, called Chillerama, and he's got all it's like his bookstore basically. He's got gargoyle statues and all sorts of memorabilia and all that decorated all around. Like I said, I grew up reading his books as a kid. They would always having a lot. They have all these crazy cool looking covers and stuff too, and it was fun. It was a good series. But it's like Goosebumps in a way. They were kind of geared generally towards kids, but I feel like I have to give him a shout out because left a big impression when I was a kid. So,
well, speaking of which, Goosebumps was the series that left an impression on me, written, of course, by R.L. Stein. Now, many have criticized R.L. Stein, namely the YouTuber Paparina, for being an extremely uninspired, shitty, lazy writer, but I grew up with Goosebumps. I read the books. I watched the show. I'm a Goosebumps fan
I
through and
like
through.
the first movie too that they did with Jack Black. I thought that was actually way better than I thought it was going to be.
I haven't seen any of either of the movies, and I haven't seen the new Disney Plus Goosebumps show, although I heard that one wasn't that bad.
Right. Although I would kind of want to check it out because Justin Long usually is really good when it comes to horror stuff he's in. Whatever it's going to be, it'll be interesting. So I want to check it out just because he's in it. So,
But of all horror authors throughout the last century, at least, in my opinion, there have been none more prolific, none more well known, and none more widespread critically acclaimed than the legendary Stephen Edwin King. Born September 21st, 1947, Stephen King is, of course, an American author of horror, supernatural fiction, crime, sci fi, fantasy, and suspense novels, and has such been labeled the king of horror. Stephen King's books have sold more than 350 million copies as of 2006, and he has published 200 short stories, um, and many, many other novels. And many of his works have been adapted to movies, TV shows, miniseries, and even comic books. Um, and on April 5th, was it April 5th?
I'm not sure.
Let's see. Yep. April 5th, 1974 was the day that Stephen King's career truly began. This was the publication date of Stephen King's first novel, Carrie. And with this year being the 50th anniversary of his career, and with me being in another Stephen King mood, I figured it would be a nice occasion to celebrate the career of arguably the greatest horror author of all time. Sure, there's others that have come close, again, like Richard Matheson and Dean Koontz. I don't think Dean Koontz is specifically a horror writer,
Mhm.
but
Well,
his
King isn't always 100% a horror writer too. Like a lot of his other stuff, like which we'll see in my listing at least, isn't necessarily like a horror uh choice.
true, but King does predominantly do
Right, right.
that
He's
genre.
predominantly in horror, and a lot of his really crazy stuff, especially came out when he was high on cocaine a lot.
And another one, Clive Barker, of course,
Oh, Clive Barker.
the
Yeah, can't forget
prolific
Clive.
writer. And yeah, okay, King has certainly done some questionable things over the course of his life, namely when he was at the height of his drug and alcohol problems. Like Stephen King has gone on record of saying when he wrote Cujo, he barely remembers the entire process. And that's because I don't want to get into too much of it because I'm sure that's the period of his life that King's not very proud of.
Hmm.
You could literally name it, and Stephen King was on it. Coke, heroin, weed, alcohol, shrooms, LSD. Yeah, you name it, he was on it. Thankfully, King was able to overcome his drug and alcohol issues. Surely in no thanks to his wife Tabitha, whom he's been married to since 1971.
Hmm.
Kudos. Um, but yeah, King's done some dumb things over the course of his career, but still, it's very hard to deny and argue with the fact that Stephen King is one very talented man.
Hmm.
And any ounce of praise in the world is 100% deserved and 100% earned, in my opinion. And it is also very respectable that Stephen King was able to overcome his drug and alcohol issues and move on and still have a successful life. So kudos to him and kudos to a 50-year long career. And thankfully, it does still seem like Stephen King has no desire to slow down or retire because you still keep seeing Stephen King pumping out books and people pumping out Stephen King movies and shows. It just never seems to stop. And surely we will be drawing from Stephen King's deep, deep well of books and novels and short stories for film and television for decades to come, which is awesome. So, to celebrate this occasion, me and Seanie Boy will be counting down our top 10 favorite Stephen King movies. Um, Not really any rules regarding this, although we're not including any miniseries in
Right,
this,
because
at least.
it would take forever. I feel like that has to be its own separate list.
Sure, but I haven't seen a single Stephen King miniseries that I thought was good. So,
I like the 90s It miniseries.
well,
The first half I think is genuinely great. The second half's where it gets pretty iffy. Which is kind of the case for a lot of his stories.
yeah, Stephen King has often been criticized, like his biggest flaw as a writer has often been stated to be his endings. A lot of people criticize endings in his books.
I didn't
Um,
like the ending. That's literally a line in chapter 2 by
yep.
Stephen King. Boy, King has written
Uh,
some crazy stuff like you ever see Sleepwalkers? It's not on my list, but I feel like I have to
no.
mention it. That movie is insane. Like it's like these people that turn into like cat monsters and it's like this mother and son who are in a
Oh, Horror and Metal, who's down in the chat, he told me about that movie once, and apparently it's whack as fuck.
it is like peak the coke years of Stephen King. Like it's so Nick, I tell you, the movie is hilarious though. Like it is batshit crazy. Literally, somebody like kills a cop by stabbing him with a corn on the cob in the movie. Ron Perlman's in it. Mark Hamill makes a cameo. It like Mark Hamill shows up like beginning of the movie, and he's like somebody does like cats. He's got this mustache or whatever, like he's Tom Selleck or something. Ron Perlman, like it's like a young him in there. The makeup is kind of wacky. That one guy from Beetlejuice is in it, like Otho or whatever. Like he plays this teacher named like Mr. Phallus or whatever, and insane. Like there's a part where like the guy, like they're afraid of cats or whatever, these weird skinwalker things. There's a scene where the guy's face just morphs into all sorts of different things. It's so much overacting and hamminess. It is insane. Like that's what, if you want to watch like a so bad it's good Stephen King, that's one to watch.
I wouldn't mind seeing Dreamcatcher either. I've heard that one's kind of so bad it's
Isn't that the
good.
one with the shit weasels or whatever, as they call them, or something? I don't know.
Believe it or not, I've actually never read any of Stephen King's books.
I read it.
I just know a lot of details about many of his books. Like I know, especially when it comes to the movies, I know differences, um, and such. But I've actually never sat down and read any of Stephen King's books. Partially because, dude, fucking, he writes thick ass books.
Yeah.
Although there's a few that I wouldn't mind, like listening to audiobooks. I would like to listen to it, and
I
I
have
would
read it
like
and listened
to.
to the audiobook. It takes forever to finish that damn book. It's so long. But it's a great book. Like it was probably like the story I kind of gravitated towards the most when I was younger, just because, like I said, Pennywise is the killer clown, and I don't know, I got into the miniseries. So
Alrighty. So with all that being said, yeah. Also, we're not really going to be including, because many of Stephen King's movies have spun off into entire franchises. Like
Children of the
sometimes they
Corn.
come back. Creep Show. Well, actually, that's going to be the one exception. Spoiler. And of course, the largest of all, aside from it, is the fucking Children of the Corn franchise.
Good God. And they're not any good, any of those movies. So they're not gonna make the list regardless.
No, not even the original's really any good, aside from seeing early young Linda Hamilton pre-Terminator.
Right.
Or I
Although
think
Isaac's kind of a fun villain. Like the guy they got playing Isaacs, like the
oh,
lovely creature. He's kind of fun. Like I'll give the movie that, but the sequels and just that movie in general is just not a very good movie. I don't really like it.
yeah. How the fuck do you get 10 movies out of a 20-page short story?
Life finds a way, I guess.
Ah. Anyway, so with
Before
all
you
that,
even knew what you had, you patented it, you packaged it, you slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You're selling it. You're selling it. Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn.
are
I
you
don't know.
criticizing Children of the Corn, or are you criticizing Stephen King?
Well, Children of the Corn, because like I said, King didn't really write like sequels to it or anything like that. Um, he's written a lot of stuff though. So, like I said, if he's written it in some capacity, it's on the list. Like,
Anyway, so yeah, let's see. Were there no sequels? No miniseries.
well, sequels, no sequels can count
No,
because Doctor Sleep is a sequel.
no direct to video bullshit sequels like the Children of the Corn series, or the Sometimes They Come Back, or like the Mangler 2 and the Mangler 3, shit like that.
Yeah, you know what?
Um,
Let's just get to our list, Nick.
yeah, let's get into our list. Okay. So I actually have.
I just put 10 because I narrowed it down to just 10. There's a few movies that I still like that aren't necessarily on this top 10, but I want to put it just to 10.
Well, I have some honorable mentions that I'll get to briefly. So let me
Okay.
get through those real quick. Honorable mention number 1 is Creep Show and Creep Show 2. I am actually kind of in the minority where I prefer Creep Show 2 over the original, believe it or not. For some reason it just resonates with me stronger. Although honestly, I really only like 3 out of the 4 stories. And I say there's 4 stories in Creep Show 2 because I count the animated wraparound segment as its own story. But I do think that the original Creep Show is a very good film. It's not specifically a Stephen King movie, although it does use some short stories from Stephen King's filmography and Stephen King himself. It was his acting debut, I think.
Yeah, doesn't he play like some redneck or whatever?
Yeah, a dumb farmer. But it
Yeah.
was specifically his screenwriting debut, like the first time he ever actually wrote a screenplay for a film. So I feel like it's important to mention that as far as his career goes. Um, I do think that the original Creep Show is a little overrated. Not as much as others, but it seems like whenever horror anthology movies come up, Creep Show is in like the top 3 that people always mention as being one of the best, along with the no, not the Twilight Zone movie. Well, I could just show it because I live with a huge fan. Trick or Treat always being a big fan favorite.
I love Trick or Treat.
But yeah, I'm in the minority that prefers Creep Show 2. It just resonates with me more. I think it's a bit more fun. The first 2 segments of it, Chief Woodenhead and The Raft, are some of my favorite shorts of the whole Creep Show franchise. Yes, including the shitty third movie and the TV show. Um, yeah, Creep Show and Creep Show 2, those are fun flicks. And the last honorable mention that I have is Cat's Eye, yet another Stephen King anthology movie. This one is a little more, I don't want to say generic or gimmicky, but this one's not quite as well known as Creep Show. But I actually prefer Cat's Eye over Creep Show. Although the first segment, it's another anthology story. It has 3 segments, and the gimmick is that all 3 feature this cat that just goes around this random city and encounters 3 various situations that it gets itself into. The first one with James Woods sucks.
Even
Not a
James
good way to start off the movie.
is James Woods at least good in it? Because like even if he's in something not great, he's usually given a pretty solid performance.
He's not as much of a dick, and that's the nicest way I can say about it.
Okay, I mean, like I
The
said, I
nicest
like
thing.
him. You ever see him in Vampires?
No, I've never seen Vampires.
He's awesome in that. Like he just makes the movie. Or Hercules, of course, is one of his best roles as Hades.
Oh yeah, of course. Hey, 2 thumbs, way, way up
Way up. We
there.
dance, we kiss, we smooth. What do you say?
Aren't we forgetting one teensy weensy, whatever so crucial little tiny detail? I own you. Anyway, yeah, Cat's Eye is a very cute, sweet, comforting main Stephen King vibe film. There's another one on my actual list that has that even more so, but this along with that one. Have you noticed that a lot of Stephen King movies, they tend to just have this homey, small town, comforting
Yes,
vibe?
I think one of the prime example for me is like It.
It kind of has that. It depends on which version you're talking about,
Or
but
Stand By Me.
there you go. That's another one.
That's
That's not on
one.
my list, by the way.
Silver Bullet. That's another one. Which, well, you'll see that one on my list. You'll be surprised how
Mine
where I have
too,
it.
actually.
Oh,
But yeah, Cat's Eye has that in spades. But it's also just a very cute and sweet movie. The final story, where it's a cat versus or the cat versus this random troll that's trying to steal young Drew Barrymore's breath. It's very cute and sweet watching this cat protect this little girl from this random troll.
King has a thing with cats as like g- fighting weird creature things. Because Sleepwalkers, it's the same thing. They're terrified of cats.
And Drew Barrymore.
Yeah,
Um,
Firestarter.
oh yeah, she was in Firestarter too. Yeah.
Not
Yeah, not
Firestarter
much
too,
to
but
say about Cat's Eye, but it's a fun flick. Not one of my absolute favorites, but it is a fun movie. So, Seanie Boy, since you're my guest, you can go first.
okay. I'll have one honorable mention, which just barely missed the top 10. The Mist. Because and like I said,
Really?
and the thing is, I still like The Mist for me, it's the ending that really kind of elevates it, but the like movie leading up to it, it's like, it could be better, but like these other 10 films I just enjoy more. Um, so like I said, just want to have it as number 10. We've already talked about The Mist on your channel beforehand, so people can go back and watch that video. I mean, that ending still sticks with me. Like, the ending actually isn't what King wrote, too, is the ironic part. But like I said, every time Frank Darabont gets his hands on Stephen King stuff, he generally does a pretty good job. And speaking of Frank Darabont, number 10 on my list is The Shawshank Redemption. This is a movie I had heard for years as like, it wasn't like a hit or anything when it came out. It kind of became successful like on home video in the TV market afterwards. So like I said, I've been hearing for so many years, it's one of the greatest movies of all time, yada yada yada. And it's kind of like when people put that high of expectations on a film, you have to kind of like it's hard not to kind of get sucked up in that a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into this thing, really no expectations, and hopefully I come away enjoying it and seeing what people like about it. I watched it. I quite enjoyed it. Like, I finally watched it for the first time, maybe like 2021, 2022. Because like I said, I held off on watching it. I had the DVD.
Damn, really?
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to say within the last like 3 years is when I watched it for the first time. So I watched it like, because I had already seen the bits that were kind of parodied, like him crawling out of the cell and all that. But there's some good performances in the film. Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, Clancy Brown's in it too, and then you had the guy playing the was it Bob Gunton or whatever is the warden of the facility. Like he does a pretty good job, like as this just asshole warden. And the
He
scene where
always plays a rich douchebag in everything he's in.
yeah, he kind of does. Ace, I remember him in Ace Ventura, the second one. But like I said, that scene where Andy has to crawl through that, like outwits everybody to get out of this situation. He's just caught in a situation. But I kind of like don't they kind of leave it ambiguous too? Like of like if he really did kill somebody, because like, but he really didn't. I don't know, like because they don't really like show him doing it. Which I think is kind of a good move in the beginning. But like I said, it's still a pretty solid movie from beginning to end. Well acted. There's a reason it's gotten so much like acclaim over the years. It's the first movie Darabont directed, like in terms of Stephen King, and it's a very good one. And it's a very different like type of story too. There's nothing really supernatural about it. It's not necessarily a horror film, although there are some dark kind of moments within the film, especially the prison sequences. But it is a well acted film, and it's one that's definitely worth checking out. I do have another Darabont film on this list, which I've already given away which one didn't make the top 10. So, but this one was still pretty good.
My number 10 might be a little surprising, especially dealing
but first,
with
a word from our sponsors.
Oh, what you got today? Arizona tea?
Mm-hmm.
Cheers. Happy 50th anniversary to Stephen King's career.
So, Stephen,
my number 10 might surprise some people, especially given recent events that are highly controversial. My number 10 is going to be 2004's Secret Window. Yeah.
I haven't actually watched Secret Window.
With Johnny Depp and John Turturro.
Two Johns.
Yeah. I actually did not know that this was a Stephen King movie for a long time. This was introduced to me by my stepmom, who is a huge fan of this movie. One night randomly, she and I decided to have a special dinner night between us because Dad was going to be off working late. And I'd seen snippets of this movie because she showed this to my dad at one point. And my dad hates this movie. He thinks it's a boring slog fest. But my dad's a square and he likes to watch boring ass hunting shows in the news. So goes to show what he likes.
Mm-hmm.
But so I recognized it, but I wasn't really going to complain because I was having fun with my stepmom. So I didn't really want to spoil the mood. Plus I had heard some things that her name's Trish, that Trish was saying about it. That sounded a little intriguing. So I was like, okay, let me give this a try. And by the end of it, I was hooked. I thought this was a damn good movie. It's got some pretty funny lines. It's a very small, low stakes movie, and I think had this movie not starred Johnny Depp, this probably would have been the most bare bones, basic, generic Stephen King movie you could possibly imagine. It would have flown under the radar. It would have made maybe its money back and a little bit more, and nothing else. But Johnny Depp gives a very strong, very solid performance in this movie. He's definitely very sympathetic for like the first 3 quarters of this movie, and towards the end of it, um, the end twist kind of either gives itself away or is just very predictable. Johnny Depp plays a writer, because of course, who is going through a very bitter divorce because his wife cheated on him, and he slowly may or may not be losing his mind throughout the course of the film. And of course, his wife has to be blonde, skinny, and bitchy. Hmm. How
Anyways,
pathetic. And well, this movie did kind of gain just a little bit more notoriety when Amber was trying to accuse Johnny of attacking her in ways that is beat for beat described the exact same way that Johnny Depp attacks his wife in this movie. Anyways,
anyways.
aside from all the weird coincidental prophetic circumstances surrounding Johnny Depp later in life, still Johnny gives a strong performance. Like he sells the movie, obviously, and like I said, if Johnny wasn't in it, he this movie probably would have just fallen into obscurity. But this is, I think, a very underrated and underappreciated film in Johnny Depp's career, and is a very underappreciated Stephen King movie. It's nothing special, and in some ways, the end twist kind of does give itself away. I'm not going to give it away, but I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, it is in some ways kind of predictable, but if you can get past the twist, it's still a very entertaining, suspenseful, and engaging film, in my opinion.
Okay.
Um, Next.
So number 9 for me is Stand By Me.
Really?
Yeah, I really like Stand By Me. I think it's a pretty solid film. It's a good coming. Notice like the two first entries on this list aren't horror films, surprisingly. But like I said, King is really good at kind of doing that whole small town feel. I think he writes kids well for the most part. I say for the most part because what he does in the first It book, with the sewer sequence, which is just objectively like, dude, what are you
What the
doing?
fuck?
The cocaine was strong in that one. I think we said cocaine like
No, the mescaline laced with heroin was strong with that one.
okay, yes. So, but yeah, Stand By Me. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but like I think it's a really strong movie. There's some good performances of the kids. I don't know. I always really connected with stories about kids kind of going on adventures and like bonding together as
Goonies.
friends. Goonies, yeah, like Goonies and like that. I mean, like I said, this is one I watched quite a few times as a kid. Like I said, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell. It's weird to see Jerry O'Connell in this because like what he kind of grew up like, you don't really like see the resemblance as much. And of course, like Kiefer Sutherland just being like the asshole of the movie because of course he has to be. And like I said, like, and then I think like Richard Dreyfuss was the narrator as well. I just like I said, I really like the story. It's like kids bonding together, going on an adventure together, and it's got some pretty memorable moments, like the scene with Lardass, where he's like the vomit scene is revenge. That's quite a lot of vomit in that scene. Although the most vomit I've ever seen in a movie is I don't know if you've ever seen the Problem Child movies.
Nope.
I'll send you the clip afterwards, Nick. But Problem Child 2 has the most excessive amount of vomit in movie history. Like it just like thousands upon thousands of gallons of it just all over the place. It's kind of insane. But yeah, like I said, I like Stand By Me. Like it's Rob Reiner. He's directed some King movies. Yeah, we'll get to another one in a second. But yeah, like I said, I like Stand By Me. So it's been a while since I've seen it, but I watched it, a few times growing up over the years. It's a good one.
My number 9 is going to be the only other tie in this list. Carrie 1976 and Carrie 2013. I really can't choose between the two. I like both equally for different reasons. Each movie does something different that balances out what the other movie does wrong. Kind of like these a similar dynamic between Predator and Predator 2 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um of course, and I'm not throwing Carrie on here just because for like arbitrary reasons. It was his first novel
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first movie of Stephen King's films. I do think that Carrie, the original, is genuinely a very good, very fun, very entertaining, very engaging film. Um, Sissy Spacek gives a really strong performance as Carrie White. She's very sympathetic. This is gonna sound weird. Every time I watch the original Carrie, I just want to give Carrie a hug.
Mm-hmm.
She's so sympathetic. I feel so bad for her. Sissy does a phenomenal job playing Carrie. And Piper Laurie does a really good job playing Carrie's mother, Margaret White, in her insane, severely mentally ill kind of way.
Yeah, Stephen King does not like religious people, is evidence.
No.
Like, I can you find an example of a character that's like religious in any of his like material that's like good?
No.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, he definitely doesn't like him. I mean, it comes to a point it becomes kind of tropey as a while. So,
Um, and the 2013 remake. Now, a lot of people criticize this movie upon release and to this day, saying that it's one of those shot for shot copy, um, what's the point, unnecessary remakes. And in some ways, I kind of agree. It is very similar to the original Carrie. Like they gave credit to the original screenwriter, which that tends to be a sign that if a film is a remake and they give credit to the original's writer, usually a sign that they just use the same script.
hmm but
Like,
updated it for modern audiences.
well, in this way, I actually do think that in a good way, it was updated to modern audiences, namely with the inclusion of social media assholes and more modern, like early 2010s teenage stereotypes.
Plug it up. Plug it up.
It's done in a good way, though, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the 2006 remake of The Omen did the exact same thing, where it's damn near a shot for shot copy of the original, and they used the same script, and they gave credit to the original screenwriter. This movie does that too, and I do think that it's a shame that there was a lot of cut footage from this movie that would have helped this movie feel like more of its own thing. But due to a recent school shooting, the studio got cold feet and they snipped the movie down to be just kind of a modern shot for shot copy of the original Carrie. But like I said, I do think that there are things that this film does better than the original. Namely, Carrie doesn't kill her gym teacher, who was the only teacher in the whole school that actually sympathized with her, unlike in the original where she does kill her gym teacher, which I don't like. Um, and the best thing about this movie, in my opinion, that like does better than the original, Julianne Moore as Margaret White is kind of in a very underrated way fucking awesome. I've always considered Julianne Moore to be a very underrated actress, and I think this is one of her most underappreciated roles. Piper Laurie is great, of course, as Margaret White, but she's a different kind of religious nut job. She's very mentally ill, and she's kind of hammy in an over the top, almost humorous way. Whereas Julianne Moore plays Margaret White as just a straight up psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very engrossing as a result, in my opinion. I do prefer Sissy Spacek as Carrie, but Chloe Grace Moretz does do a good job of honoring her predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
She's still very sympathetic. She is also quite adorable. Both Sissy and Chloe are adorable. And both movies, in a comforting way, are a time capsule of their time period.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie, 1976, is very much the 70s in a good way. And the 2013 remake screams 2013 in a good way, though, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And the 90s one, well, that's TV.
The 2002,
Oh, was it
actually.
2002? Okay. I don't
I've
remember.
actually never seen that one.
There's the
Nor have I
Rage Carrie
seen
too.
Parade. Nah, I haven't seen that one either.
Okay.
Um, the reason why both movies are so low, the ending. In both cases, the endings suck. That's actually one thing from what I've heard. The 2002 version does better. Carrie lives. But in both cases, the 76 and 13 versions, Carrie dies. And that does not sit well with me at all. And that, as a result, it makes both movies kind of hard to rewatch, in my opinion, because you feel so bad for Carrie, but you just watch her be miserable the whole time. But yeah, both Carrie movies, in my opinion, are great. They're very fun, very engaging, very enjoyable, and while not the ultimate example of like just pure Stephen King, one of the top 5 biggest examples. And the original Carrie got selected for preservation by the National Library of Congress in 2021, I think. So obviously, Carrie's impact on the world has been felt.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
All right. So with my number 8 pick, you're wearing a shirt. I'm going to go with It Chapter 2. Now, It Chapter 2 is one of the funniest like horror films I think I've ever seen. Like this, the first movie, I think you could take it a lot more serious. It Chapter 2 is not scary. It Chapter 2 is over the top, like super wacky, but like it's really funny. There's some choices I still don't understand to this day. I don't understand when Eddie is there, like he confronts his mom and they all of a sudden start blasting Angel of the Morning for like 5 seconds and then it just stops. I thought like it was a YouTube poop, but like I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard in the theater. I'm like, what is going on? It happens for 5 seconds and it's never been explained. Like, even on the commentary, it's like, and then we play Angel of the Morning and he never addresses it. I'm like, what is this? Why is it here? um, Bill Skarsgård is, of course, really like entertaining as Pennywise. Like, I mean, I think too, like the storyline of it, like it just works better when it's the kids because it's them confronting childhood fears and like kids are like in those more vulnerable situations. Like it kind of like it's more effective. The second film, not really scary in any remotely way. They just were like, you know what? Let's just go full fun, wacky haunted house. And it's basically the director in that completely unhinged for this one. Some of the de-aging effects on the kids is very noticeable, especially like at times when it's the young Richie. Like it just like I said, like some of the actors look pretty much the same, like Bill and Beverly, like from film to film, but you can tell some of the kids have kind of aged and grown up a bit as well. It definitely is like a fetch quest type movie with kids kind of finding their own little totems and going off and like seeing it was kind of cool to see like moments that we didn't really get in the first film, like during that time period as well. And the ending like is pretty over the top crazy as well. I think Bill Hader is probably the other main standout in the film for sure as the adult Richie. Like he is like
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
Yeah, he's really good. Like he knows what type of movies in. James McAvoy kind of does like this type of role. Like the adult cast is great. Like I think they're all like really good choices to play the older versions. Or the guy playing Eddie too. Like there's that one shot where young Eddie walks into frame and it kind of molds into like the older version. You'd swear it was like the same like person kind of grown up like as well many years later. And like I said, he's very funny too. Like he's almost as funny. Like he's like this. I think like the other like standout in it. But like I said, you do feel the length after a while. Like it's just like it just kind of keeps going at times. Now they kind of changed some things from like I mean some things like the first movie, like they kind of had Ben be the one to be like the big history guy, and then all of a sudden it's kind of switched to Mike, which is what it kind of should have been like in the book. But like I said, I mean, I thought the cast did pretty well. There's some very memorable Pennywise moments, like where he's in the fun house and he has that big smile. He's like, as well. But like I said, it's over the top. It's wacky. You do feel the length of it at times. You don't really get the scares or anything like that. I don't think it's as emotionally impactful as the first part, but it is a hell of a lot of fun. Like it is so ridiculous, but I love the ridiculousness of it all. So Angel of the Morning, man. I don't know why it's playing there, but it's just I swear they're just like some of it. It's like, are they intentionally making this really silly looking? Like when Pennywise is like crawling on as that giant spider, like the giant spider thing. Still, like it doesn't really matter what, you can't really make that thing look scary. But it just the fact that they beat Pennywise by just yelling at him and just bullying him, I'm like that was just pretty funny. I mean, they didn't do the turtle, which I was kind of surprised by, but then again, like that's such a
Well,
wacky
they hint at it subtly, but yeah, you're right. It's kind of a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so anything else?
Nah, I mean, like I said, the It movies, like I said, I had a lot of fun when they came out. It was such a big impact at the time. I've even dressed up as Pennywise for Halloween last year, which is pretty cool. So, anyways, do what you got to do. Go ahead.
My number 8 is going to be Silver Bullet.
Ooh.
Now, in some ways, this also, yes, is kind of a almost baseline generic Stephen King movie because they were fucking everywhere throughout the 80s. And this has a similar vibe to something like Pet Sematary and not Tommy Knockers. That was the 90s. What the hell was it? The one with the rats. Graveyard Shift. And Cujo has a very similar look and feel of those movies. And compared to others, Silver Bullet just kind of, by comparison, is just very standard. Like you have Cujo, which is a rabid Saint Bernard going on a rampage, and then Graveyard Shift, which is a bunch of exterminators getting attacked by giant rats, and then Pet Sematary is just this miserable experience from beginning to end. Silver Bullet is just kind of a generic werewolf movie. But it's because it's a generic werewolf movie. That's why, for me, it just works. It oozes the Stephen King vibe. It oozes Maine. It oozes this. Really? I don't mean ooze out of there. Damn. Pardon Meadow shitting herself in the background. Jesus Christ. Anyway, it oozes the small town vibe, and it just oozes that comforting Stephen King feel, which I love. It also has a hilarious performance by
Gary Busey
in this movie.
and Everett McGill as like the Reverend. Oh my god, that guy.
He's also very entertaining. It's also surprisingly gory and surprisingly ballsy. Like some kids die in this movie. Like, damn, was this an extended segment for Trick or Treat? The werewolf effects are quite strong. At the werewolf side of things are pretty basic and standard. It is still entertaining and suspenseful enough. And it's both intentionally funny and unintentionally funny at times. But I just really dig this movie. This is like the epitome of Stephen King vibes for me. And that's the biggest thing I can say about it. That's a plus. It's a Stephen King movie. I love it. And it's also kind of unique. It's the only time, to my knowledge, that Stephen King ever tackled werewolves in his career. So, kudos.
And it's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one. It's on my list too, but you'll see how high I have it soon enough.
Hee-haw, hee-haw, he always calls me that. Good old Gary Busey.
God, like he's great. He's great in that movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, I can't say enough entertaining things about Busey. I'm Gary Busey. He's just
you're worse than butthorn.
Reverend, my boy was torn to pieces. There's a pretty joke. Like, I mean, the jokes. Like, I mean, that's what I watched so many times. Like that might have actually been the Stephen King movie I up there was seeing the most. It's definitely because like my younger sister, that was like her favorite or whatever, so we'd watch it quite a bit whenever it was on TV. And like I said, werewolves, like I've always liked werewolves and that. But anyways, number 7 for me, I'm gonna go with The Green Mile. So the final Frank Darabont film on this list. I really enjoy this thing. Michael Clark Duncan, this is the best performance he's ever given. I mean, he makes me like the first time I saw this, like I was like ready to like just bawl my eyes out. Like he's like the epitome of like a gentle giant. Like he's so wholesome and likable and just so pure. And then you also have like Sam Rockwell in there, who's just this piece of shit. And then other actors who give good performances. Tom Hanks does as well. The ending is one that just really kind of sticks with you too, and he just kind of has to like give the order to do something he just does not want to do. And it was just this really effective film, very emotional at times, well acted. There's some intense sequences too in this thing as well, but it's just something that it really kind of spoke to me like when I first saw it. It is a very long movie, and you do feel the length of it, but there's just this like warmth to it. Or you know what? Now that I think about it, remember how earlier we were saying King has not written a likable religious character? This is the one that's likable.
Okay, yeah. Well,
To an
Tom
extent.
Hanks's character, him
Well, I
being
meant Michael Clark
religious.
Duncan. I meant Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Tom Hanks.
Oh no, I just meant like in terms of a religious character who's like in some sort of way, um, is likable.
Well, I would say Tom is likable
Yeah, Tom
too,
Hanks
but
is too, but like I said, a character that has like this kind of pure of heart, if you will.
yeah, but also with Tom, they don't really shove that in your face. Like he
Right, right,
acknowledges that he's religious, but then that's it. There's nothing else that's really spoken about. But continue.
right. So, but yeah, like I said, I got to rewatch this movie again because it has been a few years, but I mean, like I said, I think it's a tremendous film, and it's one I've always liked. I watched on TV quite a bit growing up. I have the DVD somewhere. It's probably on the shelf there, or maybe it's up at my cottage or whatever. But it's just one that just kind of stuck with me, and the ending of it as well, like where he's kind of an old man, and he just like everyone around him is kind of passing away, and it just spoke to me. Like I said, it's a very different type of Stephen King thing. You wouldn't really know it's him because it's not really in his typical like fare of horror, but it's one that really stuck with me. Like I said, it's very good, very well acted, and it makes me miss Michael Clark Duncan when I watch it. So that's the big takeaway. Great actor, great actor.
No,
Boss.
from here on out, the first few in this list are the ones where I have where there's that one big thing that kind of holds it back, or it's just so happens to be low. Really, from here on out, um, the rest of these movies, I have very little to nothing wrong with them. There is one that is surprisingly low given how much I love it, but I'll explain that when I get to it. My number 7 is Misery. Now, the only reason this isn't the one I was talking about, but the only reason this one is so low, you can't deny this movie is not very rewatchable. This is kind of like a once every 6 months to a year type movie. Because it takes place in only one location and there's a cast of maybe 5 characters the whole movie.
I think it
And
is the
because,
most timeless of all the movies, though, because
sure,
you could release it just as it is today. Like I said, it could be like it could fit like any time period basically. Because like I said, and when you're out there in like the woods and that, you don't have cell phone reception or anything like that. Um, but like I said, well, I'll get to talk about Misery when we see it on my list more, because it is on there. But I feel like it's the one that feels the most timeless, and like the scenario is great too. Like you know what? I'll zip my lips. I'll let you talk because I have things to say about Misery.
but with that being said, this is a fantastic movie. It sticks very, not very, not to my knowledge at least, but it is quite a strong adaptation of the original novel. James Caan does a great job as Paul Sheldon. Gives a great, very underrated. Bleh, can't speak. Very underrated performance. And James Caan got a ton of praise for this movie, but I still think it's very underrated.
Right, because he has a
This
lot to do. The movie doesn't work without him.
Nah, not at all. The setting is very strong. Does still have a strong Stephen King vibe to it. But I also like snowy locations, so it's
Hmm.
comforting in that aspect too.
Yeah, when I had
Um,
COVID, Nick, I ended up like when I got diagnosed with it or whatever, like I just was like I couldn't go anywhere. I was feeling crappy, so I just sat down here alone and just put on Misery because of like it was snowing outside, and I'm like, this is the movie I have to watch.
I wish I could have indulged that. Anyway, um, yeah, the setting is great. The slow increments of tension and suspense and drama and stakes and intensity is at times almost overwhelming. It just keeps building and building and building till you almost feel like you can't breathe and you can't sit still. It drives you insane, and it's so well done. The pacing is pitch perfect. The story is great. The characters are great, and of course, the highlight of the film is Kathy Bates as Nurse Annie Wilkes. She is a complete fucking nut job, and she's awesome.
One of the best performances of all time,
He
just in
didn't
general.
get out of the cockadoodie car.
The operation was called hobbling. Ooh, good God! Oh, Paul.
Stop shitting yourself. Go poop. Um, yeah, Misery is a phenomenal movie. Not that much to say about it, obviously, but fucking A is this just a great, well made, entertaining as fuck movie. Moving on.
Okay. What was I? Number 6. So number 6 on my list is, well, it has to be on here. I mean, it's one of the most iconic film adaptations. May not be Stephen King's favorite. I'm of course talking about The Shining. I know Nick loves this movie with a fiery passion. Uh, I mean, The Shining is one of those films that just sticks with you from like the first time you see it to like end of time. I mean, it's so endlessly quotable. Jack Nicholson's performance is great. It's not quite the book, obviously. And when was it Mike Flanagan made Doctor Sleep, he ended up basically like trying to find a means to bridge the Kubrick film with King's work. And you have Shelley Duvall in there, like she's really good in it. You have Danny. There's some really unsettling moments throughout this film. A great score as well. I mean, there's so many quotable moments and like memeable scenes as well that have just kind of stuck with me ever since I was a kid. It's like I said, it's a movie I really like. Now, I feel like there are like it doesn't quite nail the source material per se, but like as a film itself, like it's one that just sticks with me. Like even to this day, like I said, there's good performances in it. There's some really memorable, iconic visuals, some scenes that just really kind of stick with you. Like I said, Jack Nicholson's all work and no play make Jack a dull boy, and you've had your whole fucking life to think things over. Give me the bat, Wendy. Wendy, like just the way he's kind of mocking her, and he's just going so over the top hammy, and it gets to be a lot of fun at that point. And like there's some sequences too where they're kind of running around the maze where you can't tell if he's gaining closer, if he's like nowhere near him as well. So stuff like that really kind of sticks with you. It lacks the warmth, I think, of like King. This is what Doctor Sleep ends up doing. Like it kind of like basically like adapts the ending of The Shining into Doctor Sleep in a way. It does kind of lack some of that warmth in that because Jack's kind of a bit of a cold character from the get go, but to see like him kind of go like gradually insane as the movie goes on and just like watch him like slip into madness. It really is fun to watch because like Nicholson's such a powerhouse actor and he really crushes it when he's on screen. I really like The Shining. Now, what Stanley Kubrick basically put Shelley Duvall through, it makes him out to be like a real asshole in general. But I can't help but deny that I think the final product is really great on screen. So it's an iconic film for a reason. Um, and then it led to a really good sequel, which we'll talk about shortly. Go ahead, Nick. I know you love The Shining.
Meadow does. I do not. Alrighty, well, actually, speaking of which, my number 6 is Doctor Sleep.
Hey, good choice.
Now, given how much I love this movie, you might be surprised as to why this movie is so low. I would put this in easily like one of my favorite horror films and one of my favorite movies in general of all time. Meadow too, as well. She actually says this and the original Crow are tied for being her favorite films of all time.
Speaking of The Crow, did you see the trailer for The Crow
Yes, I
remake?
did, and I'm very intrigued. I want now.
I'm
Meadows a
like,
hater. Meadows a hater, and my brother is a hater.
Ugh.
I
Says
don't
that
know how I
Will looks like
feel.
a wannabe SoundCloud rapper. Who
I
gives
hate
a
the
fuck?
design. I hate the design.
I do too. It's bad.
Who gives a fuck? It's violent and
Ugh.
R-rated as fuck. Just gimme right now. I want now. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Moving on. So, yeah, Doctor Sleep is a phenomenal movie, and it's so whack to think that when this was coming out, I didn't give two shits
I
because it.
told I was the one hyping it up to you beforehand, and Nick knows this. Like he can explain it
Uh-huh.
because I'm like Nick, because you're like, I hate The Shining, Sean. I hate this. I'm not gonna watch Doctor Sleep. There's no way I'm ever gonna watch this movie, Sean. You're not gonna get me to watch it. You finally watched it. God damn it, Sean, you were right. It felt good because I'm like Nick. Even if you don't like The Shining, I think you'll really dig Doctor Sleep. And guess
And
what?
I do dig Doctor
And
Sleep.
he did. So
Granted, the only way to watch this movie is the 3-hour director's cut. It's the only way to watch this film.
well, I saw the theatrical in theaters and I really dug it, but the director's cut is better, obviously, because there's more to
Um,
kind of like dive into.
Despite the fact that some very unfortunate circumstances kind of surround this movie for me, um, this was maybe the one positive thing that came out of that whole ordeal. Doctor Sleep is a fucking masterpiece. It's one of the best movies of 2019. It's one of the all-time best Stephen King movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a shame that it underperformed in theaters when it initially came out. Like the fucking Pet Cemetery remake made more money than this.
No, don't say it. Don't say it out loud.
And
But
that's a piece of shit.
It sucks because like I know like Mike Flanagan was almost going to do another film in the Doctor Sleep Shining world, something like on Dick Halloran's character, because like the studio really liked it. But what could have been? I just don't get why it didn't get as much recognition as it did because it's such a great movie.
Now, the one reason why this movie is not higher, well, there's kind of two. There's other Stephen King movies on this list that I have way more nostalgia for. But the one thing that holds it back is the ending. I hate the fucking ending. It sucks. Why does Danny have to die? I know that it's an adaptation of the ending to The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
It still sucks. I would have preferred the ending to the book where it cuts to 15 years later, or like I think it's 8 years later. Danny is celebrating 15 years of sobriety, and in the book, it's revealed that Abra's mom is actually Danny's half sister. So Abra actually is Danny's niece. That is a very nice, wholesome ending. It's like that kind of epitomizes that Danny has truly recovered from his experience at the Overlook Hotel and has moved on and built a life of his own.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's kind of what Stephen King did with his drug issues.
Yep.
He overcame them and moved on. But this movie's ending just it doesn't ruin the film, but it kind of tarnishes it just a little bit. Every time I
Right.
watch the
It's
movie,
kind of that thing where he's trying to mold the two worlds together, King and Kubrick, but trying to like I know Stephen King really liked what Doctor Sleep did because it kind of gave him closure on the Shining film adaptation with this ending. So he was like he gave the thumbs up on it. But yeah, like
well,
I
that's the
understand where
thing. They could have done it differently, and had they just stuck with the scene where they recreate the dining room from the Overlook Hotel, that would have been plenty. That would have been just enough to connect Doctor Sleep and The Shining, or the Kubrick version of The Shining, together.
Mhm.
That would have been fine. But to have the ending be a recreation of the book, It just doesn't work for me. Every time I
Mhm.
watch this movie, the ending works for me less and less. But still, Doctor Sleep is a phenomenal film. One of the best Stephen King movies of all time. Certainly one of the greatest sequels of all time. And just overall, one of the best films of 2019 and one of the best movies ever made.
Okay, well, my number 5 on this list is Doctor Sleep. So, I mean, pretty much all you were saying there, but one thing you did not mention, Ewan McGregor's performance as the older Danny Torrance,
Oh, duh. Yeah, of
I thought
course.
was really great. And of course, Rose the Hat, um, I thought really like was a great villain. Like Rebecca Ferguson like crushes it like when she's on screen here. I like I said, I thought she was like one of the more memorable like Stephen King villains that we've seen in recent memory. And I thought like it was cool how they kind of added some depth to the villains, if you will, within this series. Like because they're kind of like you get to see them kind of living like their like everyday lives, if you will. And then before that, like, you know, like before they have to go and feed on people, the scene that really gets to me though, like because it felt the most realistic, was when they kidnap that kid and they just like you just hear him screaming as they kind of have to like tear him apart in a way.
Oh, yeah. That's a
And
hard
like
scene to watch.
that is a hard scene to watch. Now, the ending too, where like Danny Torrance has to kind of overcome his alcoholism by confronting the ghost of like his father, if you will, like because it's kind of cool how they kind of like the spirit, the hotel, if you will, is kind of manifesting his dad before him as like this waiter, if you will, like the alcoholism and all that. Like that scene.
Even though Elliot from E.T. looks nothing like Jack Nicholson.
Right. That's the one iffy thing in this movie that really takes like I Mike Flanagan did ask Jack Nicholson to kind of come back to do like a cameo of some sort in this movie, but Jack Nicholson's just enjoying his retirement. Now, if we could have gotten a like at least a Jack Nicholson impersonator or something, you know, it'd been great. Have Jim Carrey do it because he does a good Nicholson impersonation.
Actually, yes, I've seen that. He does
Right.
do
I
a good
just I just think it would have been it just feels off-putting because it's not him because like Nicholson has such an iconic presence in that Kubrick film. You just can't replicate it. Like it just like he's so like synonymous like with that role and just stands out like when you get Elliot from ET doing it, it just feels a bit off. Like the other recastings, like the guy they got for Dick Halloran, thought he was great, pretty spot on. The actress they got for like Shelley Duvall, like her voice in that sounded pretty spot on. It's just the Jack Torrance thing. But you could argue because it's the hotel kind of manifesting him in a way. And so he kind of changes appearance. So, like, that's kind of the out I'll give the movie. But it's just hard to replace Jack because he's so, like, synonymous with The Shining. Like, he's why most people generally remember that movie. Now, the ending, I can understand. Like, I'm kind of on two camps with the ending. I understand what it's trying to do, and I still like enjoy it for what it is. But I guess at the same time, like it could have been cool to see the actual book ending to Doctor Sleep. It's like it's kind of tough because, like I said, it's trying to give closure for fans of like the first Shining book and Stephen King in particular. Because like when Mike Flanagan was tasked with making this thing, he kind of like he loved the Shining movie, but he also loved the Shining book. So he's trying to like please both camps and kind of bridge the gap, if you will. And he understood that Stephen King did not like that adaptation. And King, The Shining is very personal to Stephen King because it has to do with alcoholism and overcoming it and all that other stuff and facing your demons. But in this film, like I said, it kind of like takes that ending from that book and just kind of puts it in this one. And like I said, it gives nice closure. There's a lot of like really warm human moments in this movie as well. It's beautifully shot. It's well acted. I also like the scene where he's just kind of talking to people and comforting them before they eventually have to pass on. There's some intense sequences and some visually interesting stuff, like when Rose the Hat's kind of floating over and trying to find the character like with this shining ability in that. And then the Overlook Hotel as well, like that sequence at the end, like when the music starts kicking in, like the old Shining music, they kind of recreate some of the shots.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really cool. Like they were savoring it, like because it pretty much stands on its own, like as a movie. And then once you get to that, it's like okay, now the nostalgic stuff can kind of kick in, but it's like it's earned at that point in the movie. It's not like remember this, I remember the member berries that everyone says, but like they savor that stuff for when it's necessary, when he has to go to the Overlook Hotel and face his past, if you will. So I really like Doctor Sleep. I liked it more than The Shining, even though The Shining had some more memorable scenes that kind of stuck with me a little bit longer. I just think Doctor Sleep's a better like made movie, if you will. So good, very good movie.
My number 5 is The Mist.
Ooh. The ending of The Mist is my favorite. Like, that's the thing, but the rest of the movie, like,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the ending definitely does overshadow the rest of the film because of how memorably fucked up it is.
yes.
I've said this before. This is one of my favorite movies to show to people who've never seen the film. And I've done this to a few people. Like I did it to my stepmom Trish when I was babysitting my sister one night. She'd never seen the film, and by the time the ending came around, she was like, "What the fuck?" I showed it to Meadow, and she hated it.
It is such a great troll ending. I will tell you this, there is a version on YouTube where somebody added in like Smash Mouth's All-Star as soon as the military starts coming in. And it's the funniest thing because it's like, somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest.
So I don't remember if I told this story in my Mist review, but my favorite occasion that I ever showed this to somebody, and he gave me permission to mention this. Well, not that I needed it, but anyway, my favorite person that I ever showed this to was my brother. I don't remember if I told the story, but I'm going to tell it again.
All right, tell us story time with Nick.
So I saw the movie, which, by the way, the first time I saw this was well after the film had come out, like almost 10 years later, in 2016, when I had just reunited with my brother not too long ago, but I had watched a book and movie comparison of The Mist from the Horror Guru. And I'd seen a few other reviews of this movie, like from Death to a Horror Review and Necro VMX, who did a Stephen King binge for the month of February. And so I was like, okay, I need to see this. So, because I recognized, I was still a fan of The Walking Dead at the time. So I recognized Andrea and Dale and Carol. So I ran out. Thankfully, this movie was dirt cheap. I picked it up for like $5. So I watched the movie, and by the ending, I was like, oh, I gotta show this to my brother. So a couple weeks later, I called him over. We had food, we had drink, and we were just sitting down. And I was telling him, like, watch this fucking movie. Just watch it.
Just for the ending. Like that's the best part.
We're watching it. We're having a good time. We're just enjoying each other's company. And by the time the ending came around, I wasn't watching the movie. I was sitting there like this. And I was like, just keeping an eye on my brother leading up, like the last 10 minutes leading up to the ending. I was like, so when the tank comes out of the mist, this was the expression on my brother's face. Wow, he says, looking at me.
Man, sucks to be that guy.
Laughing, and I'm just like, yeah, that's fucked up. That's ballsy.
That is such a great ball. Like, see, that's like an example of like the dark ending for a movie being the better ending. Because I think even King stated he preferred the ending in the movie to his book because he's like, wow, that's a really ballsy choice for your main character to kind of do something like that. It's an ending. Like, I love the ending to The Mist, even if I don't love the rest of the movie per se. Like, but that ending is so ballsy and so like great and dark. You know, that's kind of the same reaction. It's kind of the same thing that's happened to me when I've shown people like some movies. I won't give away this one if anyone hasn't seen it, but the 2003 film Old Boy, showing that ending to somebody who has never seen it before and just seeing their reaction, like, oh no, what the fuck was that? Or a more recent entry was when I showed some people Malignant, the James Wan film, because they're wondering what it is, and just the react. You've seen Malignant, right?
Nope.
Okay, well, when you get to see what really
I know it starts off one way and then it ends a completely different way.
The ending, Nick, you will love the ending because it becomes like fucking like Mortal Kombat martial arts fatality fest, and it's so like it starts out one and then becomes this is like James Wan intentionally made like a campy horror film in some ways, but like what happens with it, like it's one I just had so much fun with, but when you get to see exactly what it is, everyone's reaction is like, is that it's great. But yeah, like I said, the ending is so good though. Like I almost put it on my list, but these other films I enjoy more throughout the entire runtime. So
Well, yeah, like I said, the ending does kind of overshadow the rest of the film, but I think outside the ending, the rest of the movie is still really strong. The actress who plays Mrs. Carmody does a phenomenal job. She's one of the most despicable villains. Like her and Margaret White would get along quite well, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um,
King has this thing for just
religious nut jobs.
right.
Um,
It's it as well. Like it's just like so many of his movies have religious nut jobs. I wonder if he's
yeah,
trying
she
to
does
tell
a
us
great
something.
job. Um, Dale and Andrea from The Walking Dead do a great job. The premise itself is quite strong. Holding up at a grocery store during a monster attack, that's engaging in and of itself. It's creepy. It's suspenseful. It's quite gory and violent. Um, what little music there is very haunting and spooky. Uh, uh, Thomas Jane does a great job as David. Gives a very strong performance. Yeah, The Mist is a damn fine movie. And sure, again, the ending is the thing that most people talk about regarding this movie. But The Mist is truly a masterpiece and is, in my opinion, one of the greatest movies ever made. And certainly one of the most ballsy movies ever made,
Yep.
mostly due to the ending. Moving on.
All right, so number 4 on my list. This is a Stephen King thing, even though he wrote it under a pen name, which people later found out was him. I'm going to go with The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This movie is so over the top. Oh, boo, boo, boo. I love this movie. It's so endlessly quotable. Richard Dawson makes such a great, dislikable villain. Arnold is just a one line machine. It's so over the top and like silly and funny with the way the way the media kind of manipulates things. Like it actually, like I said, like it's kind of timely in some ways how things are kind of like they presented one way, but they're really just kind of lying about like the whole thing. Good performances throughout. Maria Conchita Alonso is pretty solid. The stalkers that they end up fighting, like Bones or Buzzsaw. I was about to say Bonesaw. What happened to Buzzsaw? He had to split. Here is Sub Zero, now Plane Zero. Like I said, Richard Dawson, like just pitch perfect as Damon Killian. Like he's basically playing himself like was it Family Feud that he did or whatever, and like just as like this like oh yeah he's one way but he's just real asshole like host behind the scenes and he is just yucking up the scenery. The way Arnold finishes him off like at the end of the movie is just so funny. um God, I just love the hell out of this movie. I just like it's so entertaining. It's like it's up there. Like it's not quite Commando levels of like ridiculous fun, but like in terms of like second in terms of like ridiculous funny Arnold movies, I put Running Man there. Like in terms of like pure entertainment value for like start to finish. So many great Arnold one-liners, so many bits that just have me cracking up. Hello, cutie pie. One of us is in deep trouble. Fuck you. Or just like little moments where Arnold has to sign a contract and then the guy's like, here, use my back. He signs it and he just stabs him in the back with a pen. He's like, don't forget to send me a copy. Or the best quote in the movies where he smashes the camera, but I hope you leave enough room for my fist because I'm going to ram into your stomach and break your goddamn spine. Gosh. It's showtime. Or when he's like, but I'm a quick learner and I'm going to give the people exactly what they want. He launches him off that pad and then he explodes. He's like, well, that hit the spot. I love the Running Man. The ridiculous costumes, Jesse Ventura in there as well. Captain Freedom's workout video. There's a lot of, like I said, it's so over the top entertaining. But like I said, there is some funny kind of commentary with like that on the media and like manipulation and that as well. Or just like the little things too, where they bring in like when is it Marita Conchita Alonso's character comes in and like she's trying to snoop around because like wait a minute, that's not what happened. She kind of does some more digging, and then she's thrown in there, and then they're just like Ben Richards' accomplice, his lover. She also cheated on her homework in school. Like just like little things like that would just crack me up throughout it. And like I said, it's so vibrant. It's it's colorful. It's crazy. It's over the top. And it has one hell of an ending. Now, apparently, they're doing another adaptation of it with Edgar Wright, which I am excited because I really like Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. But Running Man's one of my favorites. It's just pure entertainment from start to finish. It's one of my favorite Schwarzenegger films.
Yeah, it's one of my least favorites. Might be my number one least favorite. Moving on.
Wrong.
Well, you must be very proud of yourself. My number 4 is going to be The Shawshank Redemption. This movie is a masterpiece. Now, I kind of had a similar late start to seeing this movie. I saw it again, but damn, I must have had a massive Stephen King binge in 2016 because I saw this for the first time in 2016. I had heard a lot of things about it, and I had heard word of mouth from so many people that's one of the best movies ever made and all this stuff. But it actually, ironically, so maybe it was late 2015 or maybe early 2016, but when my grandmother had her stroke in October of 2015, when one of my aunts went to go see her in a nursing home, she is in a wheelchair because she was paralyzed. I'm not going to go into too many details regarding that, but telling the story of how she became paralyzed, she mentioned at one point she saw the Shawshank Redemption and it convinced her to go down a different path that she would have gone down had she not seen it. So I was like, okay, I need to see this movie. And lo and behold, my grandfather actually owns the Shawshank Redemption. So I'm looking through his movie collection. I see, oh, there it is. Gimme. So I go and I watch it, and the entire time from the first scene to the very end, I'm just like completely sucked in, completely captivated from start to finish. Shawshank Redemption is a fucking masterpiece. Happy 30th anniversary to the Shawshank Redemption, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, this movie's awesome. Frank Darabont was on the top of its game. He really hit the ground running when it came to doing Stephen King movies. Great cast, great performances. Yeah, some very intense sequences, some memorable lines, memorable quotes, and it has an ending that almost brings me to tears. Almost. It's like a hair's breadth short. But yeah, Shawshank Redemption is an unsung masterpiece, despite all the praise that it gets. It's such a shame this movie did not do well back when it came out, but still, Shawshank is one of the best examples of how, even to this day, word of mouth can be very helpful in making a film popular. Next.
Okay, so I just did The Running Man. Number 3 on my list. We talked about this earlier, but I'm going to go with Silver Bullet. This is a
Wow,
movie.
really?
Yes, because I'm going based on movies I just have pure enjoyment of, like watching them and all that. Like just movies that have kind of stuck with me the most, like most rewatch. Like Silver Bullet is one that I've been watching ever since I was a kid, and it's one of my favorite werewolf films. Top 3 for sure. I go like American Werewolf in London, or actually top 5, I'll say, because like American Werewolf in London's up there. The 1940s Wolfman, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, Silver Bullet's up there as well. I also really
This
like the
is
20.
my third. Yeah,
Third,
Silver
yeah,
Bullet's my third favorite. 2 being the 2010 Wolfman, and
that's
1
up there
being
for
the
me. I put
Wolfman.
2010 Wolfman. Like I like the original Wolfman and Frankenstein meets Wolfman more, but I still really like the 2010 Wolfman. And American Werewolf in London, I'd probably say is number 1 favorite werewolf movie. But Silver Bullet's great. Good performances from like Corey Haim. Like I like the bond he has with the sister, and there's also some like really funny bits too. There's some like the scene. One of the most memorable scenes is with the Reverend, and he's just in there like preaching mass, and that's where it's revealed to be the dream sequence that shows him as basically like the werewolf, where he's like, Reverend, my boy was torn to apart, and he's all like turning to this like creature. And there's some unintentionally kind of funny moments like that I kind of crack out and you can kind of make jokes about, like with the Reverend just being like, once he's like kind of found out with the eye patch, that's when he kind of shifts as a character. And he's like, why, Jane, you've nearly fainted. Why don't you come lay down inside? Like, there's some red flags with this guy. Just, but there's some pretty silly bits too. Like, why does the cop go there in the middle of the night instead of like when it's a little bit daytime when he's kind of investigating him kind of getting hit in there? I think, like I said, Corey Haim makes for a good like lead performance in this film. Like as like this, he's very vulnerable because, like I said, he's a kid in a wheelchair. And Gary Busey, scene stealer, absolutely. Like he just kind of crushes it in the movie. Everett McGill. Everett McGill, like another one that he's really over the top in is People Under the Stairs, the Wes Craven movie.
Yeah,
But
that
he's
movie's
very
dumb as fuck, but he's entertaining in that
right.
movie.
It's really stupid, but it is entertaining. Like that's a funny, entertaining thing. And he's kind of the same thing here as like this werewolf. Now the werewolf effects, like they're not the best
No,
per se.
mainly it's the design. He kind of looks
Right.
like a were-wombat
Yeah,
rather than a werewolf.
he almost looks like a bear wolf in a way, like a guy in a bear costume half the time. It's
The transforming effects, like when his face morphs into the creature form,
Mhm.
those are still strong.
right. So, but like I said, it's entirely memorable. There's some really like surprisingly violent stuff going on in this thing. I love the part where the werewolf just takes the bat and just beats the guy to death with it.
Wait, which
So
one? The sheriff or the dude in the swamp?
the swamp.
Okay, that one for some reason cracks me up.
Oh
Every
yeah, because
time I watch
it's like he holds up the bat like he's like showing it right to the camera, like, hey, check this out. Whack,
whack.
whack. And like I said, I enjoyed the hell out of that stuff. Like it's pretty funny to me. So like I said, I love Silver Bullet. Like I said, Gary Busey, just one of his best, honestly, like might be my favorite Gary Busey performance that I can think of, or like up there with what's another one, Black Sheep with Chris Farley and all that. Like just one of those memorable Busey performances where just like he's chewing the scenery like crazy.
And one a few times, or Gary Busey is not a villain.
True. So he does play villains quite a bit. Lethal Weapon, Predator 2, kind of.
Kinda. He's kind of an anti-villain in Predator 2, but he is unlikable.
A fucking alien.
All right. Anything else?
Nah, like I said, we already talked Silver Bullet, so we're into the top 2 now. Number 2 is going to be It
top
Chapter
3 for
2,
me.
or top 3.
My number 3 is It Chapter 2. I fucking love this movie. This is one of my favorite films that I saw in theaters with Meadow. This was the last, well, I mean, no, was this the last movie we saw in theaters in 2019, hon? I think it was. It was either this or Child's Play. I think it was. And this, outside of King of the Monsters, this was the number 1 movie that I was looking forward to the most in 2019. And I was not disappointed. Me and Meadow were itching with excitement and joy going to see this in theaters. And yeah, neither of us were disappointed. I don't mind the 2 hour and 45-minute runtime. I think that is a enhancement to the film, especially with it being literally a phone book.
Yeah, that is a long ass book. And there's still a lot they omitted from the movies too.
True, yeah. But it being Stephen King's second longest novel, I think the 2 It films set the standard for how you do adaptations of long Stephen King books. The cast is all perfect except for Jessica Chastain as Beverly. She just does not fit, in my opinion. She looks bored. And I've seen Jessica Chastain in other movies where she does great, like The Help, for example, from 2011. That's a great movie, and she does great in that film. But for It Chapter 2, she just looks so bored and so out of it and so disinterested. But outside of that, the cast is great. The guy who plays Ben does great. James McAvoy is surprisingly strong as Bill. And Bill Hader as Richie is hysterical.
Oh, he's fantastic. It's
oh,
one
yeah.
of his.
Look at
He's
you
great.
two. What the fuck happened to me? What's another one? Oh
How
yeah,
about Street Fighter? Oh, you'd like that game, wouldn't you?
you're a sloppy bitch. Well, guess what? Yippee ki yay, mother.
Or when the kid like says something to him, and then he just is like snaps at the kid.
Oh, sorry, you're a fan. You want a selfie? You want an autograph?
I don't write my own material. I knew it.
Yeah, he's hysterical in this movie. There's a couple choices here or there that are kind of odd. The main one that sticks out for me is Richie is the gay one. That does not sit well with me. Not I don't have anything against gay characters, but he's the wrong character who should have been gay. It should have been Stanley that should have been the gay one, in my opinion. Because he was the overly religious kid. He's the one whose rabbi was his dad. Him being gay could have been like one big last ultimate fuck you against his dad because religious people don't like gays. Um, but
Plus,
that's
it wasn't really set up. You didn't really get that indication in the first part too, as well. Like it,
still, I think it should have been Stanley.
right?
Anyway, and the "Call Me Angel" song, whatever the hell it's called, when it's
Angel of
played,
the Morning, like that bit just comes out of nowhere. And every time I see it, I'm just so baffled by the choice to have it. I don't understand it. I need to talk to Andy Muschietti one day and ask him, why does that song play in that scene? It has bothered me for what, like 5 years now. Why? Why is it there? Like it plays for 5 seconds and then it's just gone. It's like some YouTube poop, like just as a gag, or like maybe it's some inside joke that nobody knows about and they just kind of threw it in there just for like the hell of it.
it is odd, but I don't mind it. It's still funny.
Hmm.
Um, Bill Skarsgård is not quite as intense or scary as he
He's a
was
lot
in the
funnier
first
though.
movie. He is funnier and he is more over the top. So I think that, and I would probably say
The beginning scene when he rips that guy's fucking heart out is pretty fucked up.
that too. That one's pretty gnarly as
What's
well. The
that?
opening scene with the two gay guys is pretty intense as well.
Right.
He is, I would say, a little more vicious than he was in the first movie, just by a little
Well, yeah,
bit.
when he kills the kid in the funhouse.
That too, yeah. Um, the finale with how they kill Pennywise is also just a little questionable. Like just yelling at him and taking away his fear. That sounds like it'd be more of a Freddy Krueger type thing,
Hmm.
but whatever. I
I
still
they,
think it works,
this feels like a Nightmare on Elm Street type movie with all the wacky sequences and everything.
which is why I would love to see Freddy versus Pennywise.
It
That
could
would
be
be
fun.
awesome. Huh?
It could be fun.
Yeah, it would be very fun. But I still love this movie. It's an easy 10 out of 10 masterpiece for me. I don't understand all the hate. I think a lot of the hate came from the fact that people just arbitrarily shit on sequels. Just
I also
because.
think too, like the storyline for part two is just not as strong as part one. It's the
Yes
same
and
thing
no.
for the book. Like the book, it's always the stuff of the adults. It's not as effective as them as kids. It just isn't.
Um, but yeah, I think this is an awesome movie. It's a masterpiece, great sequel, one of the best Stephen King movies, and it has a funny cameo with Stephen King in it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the ending. You're number two.
All right, this will tell you what number one is. So number two is none other than Stephen King's It. This is very tough to choose between one and two, but I put It at number two, and I really loved the hell out of this movie. I remember being so excited for it when it was coming out in 2017. I loved the hell out of
Oh, I thought you were talking about the miniseries.
Oh, no, we made a rule.
Oh, well, I mean, I made a rule too, no sequels, but I have two on here, so
Yeah.
moving on.
But anyways, so yeah, It 2017. I think this is a fantastic film. The child actors all do a tremendous job. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is fantastic. Like he is a lot of fun, like as the villain in this thing. Like the way he kind of like glitches and he does that thing with his eye, which is all practical because he could just like move his eye like one way, keep one steady. My niece can do that too, and I'm just like, how the hell can somebody do that? But yeah, like I said, he's very like he became an instant horror icon. Although I will say one thing, I will give like Tim Curry's Pennywise over him is the clown aspect. Like if any kid sees this clown, they're running the opposite direction. Like I can't see how he can like lure kids. I mean, his performance wise, you kind of get but like that look and design just comes across as too scary. Like any kid who sees it's like I'm instantly running. At least with like the Tim Curry one, he comes across as like an actual clown, right? Like kind of fun, charismatic, and it's like, oh wow, I could be friends with this guy, sort of thing. But Skarsgård is so over the top and entertaining, like also unintentionally like really funny. The part that always makes me laugh the most is when he's like, "This isn't real enough for you, Billy. I'm not real enough for you. It wasn't real enough for George." He sounds like a distraught like ex-girlfriend who's like being like who's like not good enough for like their significant other. It just the way he just delivers that, it's just like really over the top funny. Or when he does his infamous dance, like just that was meme to death. So like I
the
said,
second movie, real quick, my favorite Bill line is didn't want them to know what actually happened to the poor Shokopiwa. Num 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 num. Time to float.
or my favorite in the second one, or maybe truth or dare. I know your secrets, your dirty little secrets. Or you're nothing but a big fatty loser. like he ran out of insults, like, or kiss me, fat boy. Like that one was a fun callback to the '90s miniseries. But like Bill Skarsgård's great. All the child actors are fantastic. I do think Finn Wolfhard probably steals the show as Richie, and like and what's his face is Eddie. All the child actors kind of went on for the most part to do like
Shazam.
Yeah, a kid from Shazam. Like most of the kids went on to do some pretty successful stuff as a result. Finn Wolfhard probably has like one of the best agents though, because he goes in Stranger Things, then he goes to It, then he's in Ghostbusters. I guess he's just trapped in the '80s. In some ways, but yeah, it works. Like I said, the bond from the kids, like there's something great about that. The bullies, like I said, I mean, I knew they were kind of stock bullies because, like I said, that's just Stephen King things. Although I kind of like how this one's just like a complete sociopath, whereas the other ones were kind of like 1950s greasers. But just the absolute extremes that they'll go to.
1950s greasers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like before, it was just standard like 1950s greasers. This one's just a straight up sociopath. But like there's some unintentionally funny bits too, and some gruesome bits. I like the fun haunted house sequence where they're on there, like they have the 3 doors that they have to choose from, so they choose the one and it goes The second movie pretty much becomes that whole haunted house like stuff. Eddie's mom being in there as well, like where just some of the lines with Richie, do I get a kiss too? Like stuff like that. I don't know. There's some fun stuff. The stuff with Beverly's dad, I didn't mention this to this. Like that stuff is some of the probably the most intense stuff I'd see in the film because like he's genuinely like uncomfortable to kind of watch like how he acts around his daughter. But like I said, it's the bond of the kids. Like they're all kind of outcasts, but like them coming together, there's something really special about that. And I do appreciate how they're like it's that and the miniseries are like, we don't need this sewer gangbang scene. Nobody likes it. That's very uncomfortable to read. Even like it's so uncomfortable to read. You're just like, no. So the blood oath thing I think works.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's the code. Like even I think he regrets writing it. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that today. Well, yeah, no shit. Sometimes you need an editor to be like, there's like a funny parody video where it's like Stephen King's It deleted scene, and it's some guy playing Pennywise like, you'll never beat me, kids. Come on, it's time to float. And then you just hear the voiceover, hurry up, everybody, get naked. The only way to defeat Pennywise is to run a train on Beverly. And he's like, wait, what? No. You kids are disgusting. No. I can't watch this. I've been emotionally scarred. I have to leave.
Emotional damage.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I really loved it. Like I watched it, like I went opening night, and then all my friends had seen. You're like, you guys want to go see it again? We literally went like the next day together, all of us, just to go see the movie again. And then we ended up seeing it like a third time. It was a huge phenomenon when it came out. Like it became, I think like it is the highest grossing horror film of all time. Like not adjusted for inflation. Like it crossed.
I think you're right. Yeah, not the highest R-rated movie. That's Joker, but yeah, I think you're right.
Right, for a horror film, like it made $700 million at the box office, which is insane. It opened to over $100 million, which is insane to think about. But it was a phenomenon when it came out, and like I remember just being so excited to watch it. Now the second part didn't quite catch fire like the first did,
sadly.
Right, but like I said, it's not as good of a movie as the first one. But like I said, it's one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. Like it's just a genuinely like really great movie with strong performances. It's generally for the most part faithful to the source material. Like it's got the key elements in there. and it just works. It really does work as a movie. Or the stuff where the kids just beat the shit out of Pennywise, like that's pretty entertaining. Like at the end of the movie, like you ever see the behind the scenes stuff with Bill Skarsgård? He's high fiving all the actors, like, all right, guys,
Yeah,
you
what's
ready?
up, guys? You ready to beat the shit out of me today?
Right. I also like too, like how he can, like he's like, even if he scares the kids, like he's instantly there afterwards, like, are you okay? Like to comfort them after the scene, so he doesn't like traumatize them forever. Like I said, like he was really good in it as the role of Pennywise. And I hope he appears in the upcoming Welcome to Derry series that Andy Muschietti's making.
Oh yeah, that is happening. I kind of keep forgetting.
Right,
about
like
that.
they haven't like mentioned, like it's Andy Muschietti directing it. Bill
I doubt
Skarsgård,
it.
Bill Skarsgård has to appear in it as Pennywise. I think he will. It's not been confirmed. It's probably being like a secret, but you can't have that and not have Bill Skarsgård show up. Like the moment you have that series trailer and then you have Bill Skarsgård pop up, everyone's going to be hooked to watch it. So, because there's a lot of stories left to tell of like it in the past. Although Stephen King, like in like his other books, has kind of hinted that Pennywise survived the ending of it, but he's never quite confirmed it. He's kind of left it ambiguous. So, but I really love the movie. I think it's great. A phenomenal film.
My number 2, it was really hard to pick a number 1 because these top 2, man, it's some days it kind of flip flops, but I do think this is the definitive ranking. And had my number 1 pick not come out, this probably would have been my number 1. My number 2 is The Green Mile. Yes, I had to have all 3 Frank Darabont movies on my list. I just can't. It's a crying damn shame that Frank Darabont hasn't done more Stephen King. Like, once he got booted off The Walking Dead, he should have just been like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm just going to go back to making Stephen King movies.
Right, and he does a good job. There's no bad Frank Darabont Stephen King movie.
Man, I got some history. Like, of all Stephen King movies on this list, The Green Mile is the one that I have the most amount of history with. Ironically, though, again, it took me a long time to really get into this movie because, ironically, it wasn't until after Michael Clark Duncan died when I finally was like, okay, I want to see this movie. And I fought my dad tooth and nail to watch this movie because after Michael died, they showed this on TV a lot, and 4 fucking times I was watching it on TV, and then around the same time, every single time, my dad would come in and strong arm the fucking remote control away and just watch his own shit. The 4th time it happened, I like damn near shoved the thing up my ass trying to say, Dad, no, I want to watch this movie. You can watch your stupid news later. You record it anyway. The same shit happens every single day. People bitching about the world problems. No one gives a fuck. Just let me watch my damn movie.
I'm sorry. You lost me at the fact, like, I nearly shoved this remote on my ass.
Yes. Well, because that's what I almost had to do. He kept trying to take the damn controller out of my fucking hands.
I'm sorry, but of all the places.
Yeah. That's what I almost had to do. I almost had to suitcase the fucking TV remote.
I'm sorry, but that's just it's like it's like the world's greatest freak out video where the kid's like, ah.
Meadow was just talking about that.
I'm sorry, but like that just kills me. I almost had to throw the remote outside. Something shut up my ass.
Well, I finally got Seanie Boy. He got me with the gangbang quote from a couple years ago. Now I got him with this. Anyway, so I watched the movie and I bawled my fucking eyes out at the very end.
Were you bawling because the remote was shoved up your
ass? But a few years later, because I watched it on TV, but it was edited. This is a very R-rated movie. So I get it on DVD around the same time that I got The Mist. And I sit down and I watch The Green Mile, and I just uncensored and uncut. I'm just like, this is awesome. Even though the ending's very sad and it's kind of, well, it is a fun movie. At the same time, it's kind of not a very fun movie because of how sad it is. Um, it's still a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. So I showed it to Meadow a couple. Was it last year that I showed this for you for the first time? Last year, Meadow watched this for the very first time in her life. She loved it. So much so we watched it again a couple months later. Showed it to my grandparents. My grandfather is a huge square when it comes to movies too.
He's
But
a square, Benny. Kid's a square.
He ended up loving this movie. My grandma cried at the very end because, of course.
Oh yeah, you can't help but.
Only one time watching this movie, the very first time I saw it, did I cry. But the ending, like the emotional impact, just hits me every single time. It's like, damn. Yeah, great performances. This is hands down one of Tom Hanks' best movies, along with Forrest Gump and Castaway, in my opinion.
Ooh, Castaway. Tom Hanks made me sad over a fucking volleyball in that movie. A fucking volleyball, man.
There are some, pretty messed up and intense sequences, namely when Edouard Delacroix is killed. That's a pretty hard scene to watch.
Was that the one where it was the electrocution and they didn't
dry
put the
sponge? Yeah. There are some pretty
that guy who played him, or the guy who didn't do the dry sponge, that was Looney Bin Jim from Punisher Warzone.
Yep. I'm gonna get my applesauce back. Anyway,
before we continue, Nick, at some point we just got to talk about Punisher Warzone. Just to talk about it. Just that movie is so fucking funny.
Maybe I'll think about it. Anyway,
right.
So there are also some pretty humorous scenes in this movie too. Namely, everything that has to do with William Wharton, Wild Bill Hickok. Namely, the scene when the moon pie incident. And you believe this? Son of a bitch pissed on me. I'm currently cooking up some turds to go with it. Nice soft ones. Have them out to y'all tomorrow. And then comes in with the fire hose. Piss on me. Yeah, this movie kind of has everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark and fucked up. It's heartwarming and uplifting. It's sad. It's funny. It's a long fucking movie. I don't give a shit that this movie's 3 hours long. And
Just woke up like that.
what the fuck? Boy, fix your damn shirt. Again, yeah, great performances, great music. This is just a masterpiece of modern day cinema. 25th anniversary for this movie is this year too. Yeah, The Green Mile is a masterpiece. I love it. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And for a long time, this would have been my number one favorite. So I couldn't possibly imagine what Seanie Boy's number one could be.
Number one,
Misery, Misery, Misery. That's what you've chosen.
Really?
Yes. Misery is my favorite Stephen King film. I mean, you've already mentioned some things about it before, but like this movie, like I said, this one definitely, it still hits like today as well as it did when I was younger. I mean, because like I said, it feels kind of timeless. Like it kind of take place at any period, if you will. Here we have this writer, like I said, basically this is Stephen King's like biggest fear as a writer is to be kidnapped by an obsessed fan who forces you to write their own like novel, if you will. Like that's like a terrifying concept. And James Caan and Kathy Bates, for really just mostly being those two in the movie, are exceptional in this film. They both give such tremendous performances. Like James Caan, like, I mean, he has a lot he has to do with just kind of so little, but like Kathy Bates is both like, she comes across as charming and likable at first, but then she's a complete sociopath and able to snap in an instant. Like this is the role that like put her on the map, I'd say. I mean,
she ain't no sociopath. She's a fucking nutcase.
I mean, like I said, she's fucking crazy. Okay, sociopath, psychopath, crazy. How about this? She's fucking crazy. She's a crazy ass bitch.
Cold hobbling. Snap.
That scene is the most unsettling scene like in the movie. It's just like you're watching, like,
makes my scalp tighten.
Good God, and like just little things like just not going Paul's way throughout it. Like I said, the moment she goes like, "Oh, I'm so sweet and warm," and then just misery is dead. I don't want her.
His spirit. I want her, and you murdered her.
Or the scene where she murders his or burns his book like right in front of him, and then he's like, "We're gonna need 2 glasses, Annie." And then he just is like, eat it, you sick, twisted fuck.
Eat it till you choke.
Right, like that. It's so intense from like kind of beginning to end. The 2 actors really kind of carry it through, and they're just captivating to watch like the entire time. It's also really funny at times too. It's got like a dark sense of humor. Like when Paul's just kind of sitting there and she's like waving to him, he's just like this. Like James Caan had this like really great sense of humor about him, like in specific sequences where it really just kind of works.
That is one of the biggest differences between the movie and book, because in the book, Paul fears Annie. He's very like submissive and subservient to her because he's so scared of her. But here he's more defiant.
Right, but like he also has to. Right, it works really well for the movie. But he also has to be kind of smart about things too. I know you've been out of your room, Paul, because my clock is, or whatever it is, pointing this way and all that. Like it always faces due this. So I can imagine what you can think about me. Oh, I never called this. And if you die, if I go, you go, or something like that. Like if I die, you die. Just that, like you're never going anywhere type mentality. Or when she plans on like killing them both, like at the end of the movie, or when she kills the sheriff or whatever, like right there, like it just is like
that was the one time where I jumped, Mr. Sheldon.
Boom! Oh, good God, it's so good. You know, it's kind of funny. Like 2 Rob Reiner movies like made this list. Like Stand By Me, like near kind of like the bottom of the top 10, and then Misery at the top. And like I said, I really loved it as well, but I think Misery just kind of captivates me more from start to finish as a film. Like it's definitely more grounded film, if you will, very intense. And like I said, it feels like something that could really happen with like an obsessed fan, just kind of being like caught up in this situation. And there's something kind of terrifying about that, and it just really works. It's like 2 fantastic performances. The best, I think Kathy Bates, like probably my favorite, like might be my favorite female villain of all time in a movie with this performance. Like I really struggle to think of anybody who like tops her, like in terms of like, you know, in terms of female villains, because she's so great on screen. It's my favorite performance of hers. Like she just, every second she's on screen, you're just like waiting for her to kind of go even more unhinged and just, oh, I'm so sweet, Annie. And then she just snaps. Or one of my favorite bits is where like they do the cliffhanger where she talks about the movie Serial. It's like, that isn't what happened. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car. So
who's my favorite female villain? I don't think I have one.
Probably Annie Wilkes from Misery or Cruella de Vil. Like those are the top 2 I can think of.
No, I was also thinking Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter.
Oh God, what a bitch! Like she is. Or Amanda Waller is one as well.
She's kind of an anti-villain. She's not full. She has.
But Dolores Umbridge, yeah, I could give that one too. That actress plays the part so well. I like want to spit on the screen when she's there. Like just I must not tell lies. I legitimately like clapped in the theater when I saw that because I was like, oh, thank God, she was so awful as a person. But yeah, like I can't say enough good things about Misery. Like I said, it's well directed, it's well acted, very intense from kind of start to finish. So many iconic moments. It's just a great movie to watch. It's a timeless film. I think it's definitely like my favorite Stephen King movie. And it was tough. Like it was tough to like put this list together, but Misery is at number 1. And I know you're number 1 because you haven't said it yet. You're wearing the shirt for it. It's Stephen King's It.
Yeah, my number 1. It
almost was for me too.
Believe me, this was tough. Had this movie not come out, and had my brother not convinced me to go see this movie, The Green Mile would have been my number 1 favorite. But yes, indeed, my number 1 favorite Stephen King movie of all time is It Chapter 1. This shirt was released when It Chapter 1 was coming out. And this was the very first present. Was this shirt the first present you got me?
Aw.
Hon? Come here a sec. Hold on.
Yeah.
Was this shirt the very first present you ever got me?
Either that or the little Hulk Funko keychain thingy.
I think it was this.
Probably
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, this was the very first gift that Meadow ever got me when we first started dating. And remember back in 2018 when I wore this shirt like a week straight? Sadly, it's starting to fall apart because my job destroys my shirts. It's starting to get little holes in it. But still, this is one of my favorite shirts that I have. But hands down, and Meadow actually made me appreciate this movie even more so because she's also a huge fan of these movies as well. But not to shit all over that, but the story of how I saw this movie is kind of strange. So throughout 2016, when there was that gargantuan just spread of those people dressing up as evil killer clowns.
Oh my god, I remember that. I remember there's a clown that like was near my school. I was getting an email like beware clown sightings. Like that was so weird. They just took off. Like it just happened for a little while and then they just stopped.
Yeah, I think it happened in the after the announcement of it is actually getting remade. So there was this plague of these killer clown sightings of people dressing up as scary clowns and fucking with people. Some of those people did get fucked the fuck up themselves, unfortunately. I think that's why pretty soon people were just like, nah, can't be doing that. Nope. Too much of a chance of people jumping like a gang in a ghetto and getting shot.
Right. Well, I will say I did dress up as a scary clown, but it was only for a Halloween party, but not just out in a random time of the year. And I did dress up as Pennywise.
Yep, I
Does
remember.
number 2 work for? We should talk Austin Powers at some point too, Nick.
Initially, I was not interested in seeing this because I didn't like it at the time. I had seen the 1990s miniseries and I was very unimpressed.
I loved it. Like
My brother is a huge fan of the original miniseries, and I enjoyed watching it with him because he's the person who I watched it with for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I enjoyed the bonding experience between him and I watching the original miniseries, but the movie itself, I was just not a fan. I can appreciate how like big of an impact the movie left when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think the film's aged well amongst a few other problems that it has.
Yeah,
But
a lot of things didn't age so well.
I saw the hype. I saw all the merchandise. I saw everybody going nuts over this movie when it was coming out. And I saw like little snippets of footage when it came out in theaters until finally I was just like, I think I want to see this movie. And thankfully, I asked my brother, hey, do you want to go see it in theaters? And he agreed. So this is the one and only movie that I've ever seen in theaters with my little brother. And it was a fun, very entertaining, and lovely experience watching this in theaters with my brother.
It is
But
nice,
also-
Nick, too, I will say, when a movie lives up to the hype. Like when something like a phenomenon lives up to the hype. Like this is the last time I can remember like one of those things sort of happen. Well, maybe
Godzilla,
something
King of
else.
the Monsters, and Aquaman certainly come to mind too.
Right, but like I'm talking like more of a like a huge phenomenon, like not just within our fan bases, like that really took off. Like it, I'd say was like kind of a phenomenon when it came out, or like you know how like
Well,
you know,
there's Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer, that was a phenomenon. Although like you know I wasn't like mega huge into those movies, but like it was an example of it. Like when that came out, like it just became like everywhere. So like it was this big gargantuan movie, and that just got everybody hyped.
And this movie did live up to that hype. It did live up to that phenomenon. The entire time I'm watching the movie in theaters, I was like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, my brother does prefer, to my knowledge at least, the 90s miniseries over both of these It movies,
I
which
can
is
understand the first
just
half in
whack
some ways.
to me.
I can understand preferring some aspects of it because some are, like I said, it's that 50 setting. Some of the characterization going on as well. I feel like Mike in the first, 2017 version doesn't really have as strong of a character as he does in the miniseries because he was the one who had the history of dairy stuff, not Ben. In the book, Ben was the architect of the group.
That's debatable, but anyway, yeah, this movie, like as a horror film, this movie's ballsy as fuck. Again, lots of kids dying in this movie. It feels like Mike Dougherty may have had something to do with it because of Trick or Treat. I know he didn't, but Mike Dougherty would have been a decent choice to direct an It remake, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposedly working on like a Hellraiser series, but that's like kind of stalled in terms of development from what I've gathered.
That'd be cool, but be that as it may, yeah, lots of kids dying. There's some really fucked up and intense kills, like the opening scene with Georgie. I was like, damn.
Yeah, because it's like I was waiting for the moment, but then when he you see the mouth like turn into that and bite his arm clean off, and you just see that arm
What the fuck?
like that bit where he just drags him under. Like that's
Every time I see it to this day, even just a few months ago, the last time I saw this, I was just like, man, that's messed up. And just from beginning to end, it's an entertaining thrill ride from start to finish. It's so engaging, so engrossing, so entertaining. It's intense, it's thrilling, it's scary,
it's well acted.
suspenseful, it's very well acted, it's well made. It does ooze Stephen King. It oozes Nightmare on Elm Street, which I really like. There's a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street nods. There's some nods to the larger like Pennywise lore here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It also it's a fun movie to try to spot Pennywise in the background.
Right.
Like,
There's one too where where they're in the back alleyway and you see the clown image like painted into the background
yep,
at one point. Like you
there's
kind of
that,
watching.
and also when Ben is in the library, the
Yep.
librarian in the background like turns around and gives him that.
Right, but it's like that little stare. I always love little bits like that where you kind of see something in the background, where it's just kind of off screen or something. This is an example why it's just, I mean, Hereditary when like he sits up out of the bed, like and like you kind of like you know how like your eyes can adjust to dark, or it kind of recreates that, and she's just kind of in the corner, just kind of sitting there, like something like that, like where you can see things in the background. I always love little details like that. I also kind of noticed something when I was watching, was it Halloween Ends, when I was writing that video for last year, which I still got to get that one filmed at some point. Just waiting.
Yeah, you dick.
It's not my fault. It's the people who I have that are like in this video. We've not been able to get everyone together to make it happen. I'm hoping, like I said, we can get it for October or something this year because it's all written. It's all written. All my voiceover's done. Just needs those actor bits. But yeah, like I noticed too, like a blink and you'll miss moment. You'll see Michael like way sooner than his big reveal, if you will. But anyways, like you said, like all the little background bits of Pennywise kind of hidden throughout it. It just chef's kiss.
Good stuff. And that's this movie in a nutshell. It's just a chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest remakes of all time, hands down.
Yes.
One of the greatest ensemble of kid characters and actors that you could possibly think of, probably since the Goonies, honestly.
Yeah, or no, you know what? I'd say The Sandlot.
Or The Sandlot, that too, yeah. Yeah, it's just a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite films of all time, one of my favorite horror films, and it is my number one favorite Stephen King film. It is the epitome of Stephen King as a whole. Yeah, I love this movie.
With Andy Muschietti supposedly directing like this Brave and the Bold Batman movie, like with his ability to cast child actors, I'm hoping he can kind of bring that over into that film. Because when you have to cast Damien, that is the most difficult casting choice you can do.
How about Finn Wolfhard?
No. Finn Wolfhard is way too old. He doesn't have the background of Damien. at all. Like Damien's supposed to come from like
How about
no, it should be an unknown actor.
Who's the third Robin?
Tim Drake.
Tim Drake. How about him as Tim Drake?
Maybe. I don't know.
Alrighty, so damn, this took us 2 hours. I didn't think it'd be this long.
But before let's run through our top 10 really quick one more time. It's kind of a final thing because I've already forgotten. So number 10, I had Shawshank Redemption. Number 9, Stand by Me. Number 8, It Chapter 2. Number 7, The Green Mile. Number 6, The Shining. Number 5, Doctor Sleep. Number 4, The Running Man. Number 3, Silver Bullet. Number 2, It 2017, and number 1, Misery.
For me, I have 3 honorable mentions: Creep Show and Creep Show 2, and then Cat's Eye. So at number 10 is Secret Window. At number 9 is a tie between the original Carrie and the remake of Carrie. 8 is Silver Bullet. 7 is Misery. 6 is Doctor Sleep. 5 is The Mist. 4 is Shawshank Redemption. 3 is It Chapter 2. 2 is The Green Mile. And number 1 is It Chapter 1.
Okay. I think the closest we were in terms of our rankings was It. I had at number 2. You had it at number 1. And Doctor Sleep, you had it at 6. And then I had it at number 5. So we're like, those are the only ones I think we're like really in line. But like I said, a lot of the movies we did share in our top 10 still. So, but like, there's been a lot of really good Stephen King adaptations over the years. Some better than others. He's had some real stinkers, though. That's for sure.
There are some that I would like to get my hands on and check out. I want to see Dreamcatcher. Maybe at some point I'll check out Sleepwalkers. Maybe.
Yeah, because Dreamcatcher is set in Derry.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I do want to also see Maximum Overdrive, just because of how batshit over the top insane it is from what I hear.
AC/DC. Oh yeah, I just wanted to do Stephen King right. That's what he literally says in the trailer. It's him unhinged. I think the most unhinged Stephen King like is that, and then Sleepwalkers. Sleepwalkers, Nick, you will laugh your ass off at Sleepwalkers.
And I also do want to check out Apt Pupil. I would like to see Ian McKellen play a Nazi. That'd be interesting to see.
Oh, especially after playing Magneto.
Ironically, right?
Right.
Alrighty, so Sean, you got anything to plug?
Yeah, so like if anyone wants to check out, I most recently did a review on Batman Bad Blood. That one came out pretty well. I'm already kind of hard at work on the next DC animated movie universe review. I'm sure I'll have some stuff coming out as well tomorrow. I got some new comic book stuff as well. But Bad Blood's the more recent one that I feel like it's worth checking out. A few new after the movies as well. I just did like Dune, Kung Fu Panda, and I did like Arthur the King. That was like my early surprise screening that I got on Monday. Because you ever heard of AMC? AMC does this thing called AMC Unseen, where they don't tell you what the movie is, but it's like it was only like $5 tickets, so it could literally be anything. But like the last 2 times have been more dramatic stuff, so I'm kind of hoping I can get like a big blockbuster out of it at some point. But you never know. So I saw that. I'll probably have some more videos tomorrow coming up. You know, I did order like that whole Legends of the Monsters graphic novel omnibus, and then Amazon like lost my order, so I just canceled it and I ordered it again. But with my refund of that, I'm actually getting it at a cheaper price now. So, but it's still kind of annoyed the hell out of me. Like it said, like the March 5th. Okay, your thing's it's shipped, it's in transit, and then your package is delayed in transit, and that was like 10 days ago, and nothing. So I'm like, all right, I'm just canceling this thing and ordering something else. Because like I waited long enough. So, but like I said, more stuff's coming on the way. Hopefully I can get this next script kind of written for this next video and film it maybe like this weekend, and then work on editing that one for like the following week or something. So if I can get at least like a written review every like 2 to 3 weeks, again, that's what I kind of want to get back on a schedule. Or maybe I should just work on a couple and then just kind of have them like edited and then just save them for a little bit and then give like a period of like once a week or something. I don't know. I'm still contemplating. So,
alrighty. Look forward to my next video coming tomorrow. Not sure what it's going to be, but post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share this video with your friends. Go watch some Stephen King movies, and remember, time to float, because we all float down here. And I will see you guys in the next video.
Oh, Paul.
No.